It's time for a new video. A new hero, a new legend. Kamen Rider Kuuga is the first Kamen Rider for the Heisei era for Toei. Honestly, it has been probably the same level as Ultra Antigua when it comes to this show. I binge watched Kamen Rider Kuuga, and honestly, this shit is way different from any Kamen Rider I've ever watched. So, without spoiler heads, because again, I don't want to spoil you guys, so let's talk about it. The opening for Kuuga is honestly iconic to me already. I listened to this opening a lot before watching the show, and to this day I realize I really enjoy this opening. And listening to the ending is some smooth ass ending for a show. Easily certified banger. Where do I start with this part? I guess I will talk about the characters first. This show has a lot of characters, so I'll just talk about the ones that are important in the stories, and of course, the funny ones in the show. Godai Yusuke, a kind-hearted and brave person, and of course, our main character for the show. Kaoru Ichijo, a police inspector who has been tasked to fight against the Grogi and Kuuga's partner in crime. Sawatari is an ethologist who helps with Godai with the Kuuga language, and lastly, a bunch of side characters that I don't feel like naming because the video will be long as hell. But I will mention them later on in the video. Anyways, I said that the characters for Kuuga have quite a lot of screen time in the show, even though they don't really help Kuuga battles, except Ichijo. But one of the things I do think the characters have an impact on is the theme of the show. One of the things about the theming of Kuuga is really different. So, let me introduce you to Grogis. These things are our main enemies, or main villain, technically. Not really, we see a main villain in the end of the show, but anyways. But, they're quite different. Usually, when it comes to enemies in Kamen Rider, the motif is usually something like, oh, I'm going to be using a corrupt USB to be powerful, or I'm going to use a human grease to make them monsters, so I can gain coins from them. Grogis. These guys just kill people. Like, unalive people in front of us. What the fuck? Yeah, Kuuga is very different compared to its later, shows for the franchise. But wow! I just saw a man get slaughtered in front of me in a kid's show. Huh. One of the things about Kuuga is more talk about is the value of human life, and how Grogis are just taking people's lives without any hesitations. That's where we get to introduce to Godai. I'm going to glaze Godai's character for a bit because this brother is probably my favorite main character in this franchise. Godai became Kuuga out of no hesitation when he wore the belt, and goes straight to just fighting a Grogi with no experience of fighting. But I love Godai, man. One of my favorite moments with Godai is probably the scene where he had a conversation with Nana. And let me explain the whole situation for people who've never seen it and do plan on watching the show. Again, please watch it. How Nana wanted to punch this girl who won a role that she wanted, and Godai gave her this speech where even though Godai has been fighting these Grogis for months and months, the feeling of punching someone still does not make him feel good. As a sign of Godai not tolerating with violence. And honestly, this scene is nuts to me, because this whole journey that Godai has been fighting Grogi still makes him unhappy. But he has to continue fighting to save other people's lives. That shit is some fire ass writing. We have never seen a Kamen Rider who doesn't like punching people in the franchise before, but this scene was just beautiful. Of course, Godai has a lot of good moments in the show, like the backstory of Godai's signature's thumbs up and episode 35. Fucking hell, that episode was crazy. But I'm only going to mention 2 more scenes in this video because Kuuga has a lot of iconic moments and I don't want to get copyrighted. But to this day, one of my favorite moments is definitely Godai showing his henshin to someone he trusted the most. This scene is beautiful. Speaking of which, Ichijo. Ichijo is another unique character in the series that I like because Kuuga is the only Heisei era Kamen Rider who doesn't have a second rider like the ones after Kuuga. I really like that the whole series we just see Ichijo trying to fight off Grogies without Godai, and honestly that's some balls of steel right there, man. My ass would have just died, but Ichijo is probably my favorite side character next to Unk. Lastly, I want to talk about the side characters and the last episode for the show. I know that I didn't mention much about the side characters in the show, but I really like how Kuuga utilized the side characters in the show. Because we don't just see them in one episode and then they just disappear later on. They appear in some episodes, and I love that we see how people are living their normal lives but have to be cautious with their surroundings because of the cases of Grogies around Japan. I like that they still keep going, work, and things they like, but one of the things I definitely like is we see the struggles with these characters. Tsubaki not getting enough time for himself, Natsumi who has coped with a lot of her late father being killed by a Grogi, and of course Inokida always being busy with her work and not raising her child who she gave too many promises. But even if they're struggling with life, they still have to try their best to support Godai to defeat Grogies while trying to fix their problems in life. Now, let me talk about the final episode of Kuuga. Again, spoiler warning for people who really want to watch Kuuga. You can skip this part already and just go to the next section. But holy shit, where do I start with this episode? After Godai unlock Amazing Mighty, yes, that's what it's called, Godai went to fight against Daguva, and it really didn't end well. Kuuga was almost broke. Everything around him was like burning, and Daguva was way too powerful for Godai's expectations. After the incident, Godai goes around town and announces to everyone that he's going back to adventure and saying his goodbyes with everyone. Some didn't seem bothered about it until he says his goodbyes with Sawatari and Kawazari, and of course his sister. Yes, Godai has a sister. His goodbyes to Sawatari was the most heartbreaking because throughout the whole series, Sawatari, who has been a worry about Godai, and around the late episode, Sawatari has been, warned Godai to never use his final form because his inner darkness would take over him and destroy everything he loves. But Godai is brave, and after Godai says his goodbyes with everyone, he goes ahead to fight Daguva. Well, he's driving there and someone follows him. That is the guy that trusts him and always has his back, Ichijo. They both drove to where Daguva is, and after driving there, Godai showed his last henshin to Ichijo. A reference back to the first episode, unlocking his final form, ultimate form. And we see that Godai isn't being controlled by his inner darkness, meaning overtaking the darkness in him to bring light into his powers. The fight starts with Godai and Daguva punching each other. No music, no CGI, blobs, just two people punching each other while blood are coming out of their mouths. Grunts, noises. The other joins pain, the feeling getting punched, while the other feels upset by punching someone. In the end, Godai won with his belt being broken, and Daguva killed. But Godai has left Japan before even getting to meet Ichijo again. What a fucking show, man! I want to talk about the suit designs in the show, because holy shit, they're raw as fuck. Kuuga's design is probably one of my favorite main rider designs. I might be biased with the color red, but I just love this suit. With the bug motif is really nice. One of the things that Kuuga introduced is forms, and I know Black introduced it first, but shut up. Kuuga has 5 forms that later became upgrades. Growing, Mighty, Dragon, Pegasus, Titan, and Amazing. And I say I like simplicity of these forms. Toei didn't have as much budget, so these suits look really good for their low budget. And later these suits get rising forms, and I love every time Kuuga uses rising form. He has to be cautious with his abilities, because his finisher can cause a massive explosion of Kuuga's like finisher. But I love that each suit has its own purpose to its ability, like Ultra Antigua. Growing is like normal Kuuga that doesn't have an ability or strong traits. Mighty makes his punches and kicks more strong and good for hand-to-hand combat. Dragon makes Kuuga jump high as fuck, but his strength is weak, so he has to use his staff to defeat his enemies. Pegasus makes Kuuga has super hearing and has to use a gun to focus on his targets to shoot. Titan makes Kuuga strong as fuck, to the point that he can take any hit except a very strong rock. Amazing makes Kuuga's ability 2 times the strength. I really like these forms because they gave Kuuga the ability to use in what situation he needs to use. And it's really not a toy, it's more into the natural changing of the belt and not Godai pressing the buttons to change, so that's cool. Lastly, ultimate form. This fucking form is fucking amazing. Crazy at best. While I was doing research on Kuuga's suit design, apparently the suit was supposed to be appeared in the middle arc of the series, like how other Kamen Riders are supposed to be now. But they postponed it until the final episode to make the story enhance the story progression. And I love how the design is similar to Daguva with the black and white with the bug motif. I really like this design for Kuuga, man. Overall, Kamen Rider Kuuga is amazing, an enjoyable show that has one of my favorite writers in the franchise. But of course, unfortunately, this is probably the last time we'll see Kuuga or Godai, because the actor, Joe Aragiri, has come out that he really enjoyed Kuuga, but he doesn't really like Tokusatsu, and he isn't interested to come back to the role. The only reason why he got the role because he was friends with the producer Shigenori Takatera. So unfortunately, Kuuga has fallen the same fate as Tiga, with their main actors can't or refuse to come back. So we just have a suit walking without saying lines. But I really enjoyed Kuuga, so it was a really nice journey, honestly. 10 out of 10, fucking amazing.